Let's be honest, there's no guidebook when it comes to relationships. So we end up having to stumble through life trying to figure things out for ourselves. What if there was a podcast that found the answers for you, that provided insight to build a successful relationship and ultimately find the companionship you've always hoped for? Welcome to the Girls Ask Guys show, where we answer the questions most people are afraid to ask when it comes to lessons in life and love. It's time to master this thing called life together with your hosts, John and Ashely.
And welcome back to the Girls Ask Guys show. We have an interesting topic for you today because it deals with change. The whole world is changing. People are changing. We've got this coronavirus, got the elections and all this stuff coming up. And there's just a lot of change happening. But what happens when you start to change?
It tends to be a common process with everybody. And we start that very early on in life. I'm sure when you think about who you were when you were 5, you're so different now, or you're so different than you thought you would be. I always say something like, if 16-year-old Ashely could see me now, she would be amazed at the amount of personal growth that I've had. And I think as we go into, like John said, there's a lot of changes happening, and we're literally becoming a new normal as a society. So it's really good for us to address change, especially in this period of growth. For some of you, it's a period of relaxation, and whichever period you're in, just know that when you get back to normal, it's going to look a whole lot different than it used to.
Yeah, especially with the new normal that we may be coming into. Because that's something that I've kind of been going over with a lot of different questions that have been presented to us. And yeah, change is one of those big ones, especially as we start going through different phases of our life.
And you start really, when we talk about change, you start, as early as I can remember, in middle school. I think middle school, you have the most drastic changes in personality and like what you like, because you're finally wanting to be seen as some sort of an adult, but you're still a moody, angsty teenager. So when you think about change and how radically different everything happens, it really starts that early when it comes to evolving and figuring out who you want to be. And then, you get to high school and you kind of have an idea who you are, but you still are completely lost. Then you go to college or whatever you do after high school, the military, and you really start to solidify that ground of who you are. And then as you go through your mid-20s, you really build that foundation of who you are, where you want to be. Some people, it does take them longer, I think. But for most of us, I think that's the normal time of transitioning when it comes to change itself.
Right. And really in our course, that's one of the very first things that we actually concentrate on is finding out who you are, defining who you are, so it becomes easier to find out who you want to be with. And that sometimes involves really digging down and finding what's important to you and then presenting that. And that can actually have a big impact on personal growth and change. And one of the interesting little things that happens is sometimes when you start on that personal growth and that change, it can cause a lot of rift amongst your friends and sometimes your family. That's one of those things that they can bring up a lot of arguments and kind of having to settle those and create your own boundaries.
And it's important to know that sometimes those changes and those arguments and all of those things are inevitable. Like as you grow, we all, like I said, even we take as far back as high school, we all have friends who we sort of outgrew, or friends who outgrew us first because they're ready to make changes in their lives and you're not ready to make those changes. And as you guys start to drift apart, instead of being able to solve the problem, you just kind of argue. And I think, especially in relationships, that happens a lot, is people start to argue rather than address how they're really feeling. And that lack of, or that ability to express yourself and say, hey, listen, you're changing and I miss you or something like that is very important to be able to convey versus just being angry and not communicating properly.
Right. Because I know when I was one way and then I went to boot camp, and Marine boot camp is, well, now they've extended it. So it's about 14 weeks now. And when I came back, people saw that I was very different. And it's kind of like that old saying, show me 5 people that you hang out with and I'll show you who you are.
Exactly.
And so I was surrounded by roughly 100 different people, and we all became pretty much generally had the same thought process, the same mannerisms. because, well, it's drilled into you 24/7 for 14 weeks.
Yeah.
Even people who go off to different jobs, doesn't matter what the job is, the people that you associate with for a long period of time, you tend to take on their thought process and their mannerisms.
Very true. And you have to. I mean, and it's not necessarily that you're an imitator or any of that thing. You're just around them a lot. So you see things, you say, hey, I like the way they do this. I like the way they say that. So you adopt those things into your personality. And that's what makes you who you are as a human. It's not just, you finding this solid ground to build your life on. It's also the people you include in your life. And when you get older, and especially as you get older and everything starts to change, you start to get into like a very serious part of your life where you want to have a family and do all those things. You're going to end up outgrowing a few people. You're going to end up leaving, not because you want to or not because you're better than that person, but because you have to, because life is evolving. And as it goes, you have to go too.
Exactly. And really the thing that we're looking to try and get to is exploring what happens when you change, when you start to define, okay, this is who I am. This is what's important to me, and projecting that onto the world.
Yeah. And it's going to be scary. And I think that's the first feeling that you feel when you're ready to start making changes. You're scared because you're not sure if you're making the change just because you want to or because you need to. And because of that, that fear will either A, hold you back, or B, it'll kind of motivate you to go forward. So I think when we think about change, and especially as an adult, when we think about it, we want to think about the steps and sort of, like the 5, when someone dies or something, the 5 steps of grief. I think change has those same things. And I think the first one you feel is fear, especially when the change is huge.
Right. And when it comes to relationships, like a lot of people who listen to our show, they're trying to find that person that they want for the rest of their life. And they realize, okay, I've done all of this stuff over here and it's really not working. So what do I need to change? What am I not showing that I want to show?
Yeah. And it takes a personal inventory, a very, very deep dive, very objective look at who you are and where you are compared to where you think you should be. And when I say that, I mean, not, I want to be a rock star when I was 13, I mean, when you think about where you are in life compared to where you should be in life, you say, I should have went to college. I should have did this. I should have done that. Okay. So now that you realize what you need to change, let's start making those changes and write them down and have them, use them, create vision boards, however you decide that change needs to begin and start, ruling your life in a sense. Do it that way.
Exactly. And that's really one of the core principles, because I've seen a lot of people that come to my agency and they have the trait, they have the qualities of becoming a great leader. They can motivate people when they need to, but it's only when they see that they need to. So they inhibit themselves. They draw themselves back instead of stepping up and taking charge.
And I think a lot of that is rooted in fear. For most people, at least, I think fear is the controlling factor when it comes to making change, because like I said, you're afraid that even if you make the change, what if you still fail?
Right. And that's one of those things about being authentic. You really can't let yourself be held back because you're scared of failure. And there is an inverse of that. Okay, what if I succeed?
Yeah.
There's actually a fear of succeeding. So people will start something and then it's almost like, oh my gosh, what if I actually do this? And then they'll just stop. It's one of those things that kind of boggles my mind because I just don't stop. It's not inside my DNA, so I really can't identify too much with that.
It's pretty easy. I mean, I'm not necessarily a stopper, but I'll put things on pause. And I don't think, and it's not just fear of success also, it's that literal fear that, holy shit, I'm taking this risk and what if the whole world sees me, And that fear of success is insane and it bogs people down more than anything, aside from, the fear of failure. And when we think about change and we think about the fear of success, the fear of failure, the only way you can really conquer either of those is to just do it.
Exactly. Yeah, you need to just step out and put yourself out there. Because I've heard people that I've trained And I'm like, you can do this. You've done all the work. You have all the tools. Now go do it. And they're like, but what if people don't take me seriously? Then it's that old saying that I've kind of gotten used to. You get knocked down 5 times, you get up 6.
Yeah. And you can always regroup. Like, I think a lot of people forget that too when it comes to change. You can always regroup. If you're doing something and you're saying, okay, I'm making these changes for, like, let's say you decided to go back to school. Okay, I'm making these changes. I'm doing better. And you feel stuck. You can always stop and rethink about what you're doing and regroup. As long as you take the dive, you can always swim back up.
You can always get back up and try it again. Because sometimes when you first try something, it's not going to work perfectly the first time.
No.
It's kind of like when you go out and you're doing your very first approach using the methods, tips, tricks, techniques, whatever you want to call them that we give you. And you try it and it doesn't work. Okay, well, what did I do wrong? Body language was off. I wasn't authoritative enough in my voice. I was too timid. And then you fix that. Then you try it again. The world's not going to come to an immediate halt. The Earth's not going to stop spinning and everybody flies off of it because it didn't work the first time.
Exactly. And the best part is, if you put yourself out there, if you're able to start making those changes, you have something to correct. You have a way to build, you have a model or a figurine of sorts that you can just kind of build into what you need. You know what I mean? And I don't think that's the right metaphor. You have a jumping off point. You have something to correct. You have a rough draft, if you will, what change needs to occur. And then you can go back and redo it. And by the time you've edited that little sucker 10 to 15 times, you're going out, you're meeting people. There's no more nerves. You at least have something to correct. If you're not correcting, I don't know what to tell you. Right. Like, if you're scared, if you're sitting there listening, you're like, okay, yeah, no, you guys are right. But how do I start this? Literally just start.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. You just start. If we want to make this into a huge picture that pretty much everybody is familiar with, look at D-Day. I mean, you had 30,000 ships sailing across the English Channel about to go on a small swath of beach over in France. Okay, well, this has to be set up, and this has to be set up, and this has to be set up. They've identified everything that needs to happen. They've got everybody prepared. They couldn't sit there and go, okay, so what if this doesn't work?
Right.
Well, they would have never launched. They just okay, at this time, go.
Yep.
And that's what people did. They just started. And yeah, some of the beachheads, it wasn't that pretty of a picture. Others was they just kind of walked up in there and stopped.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And others, they kind of had to fight and keep moving forward little by little. Okay, that avenue's not working, so we're going to go for this avenue. And eventually, they broke through.
Yeah. That's a complicated metaphor, but I enjoy it very much. It's very fun.
Well, if you're going to go for a job, you can't sit there and not go get the application. You can't sit at home and somebody's going to come up and knock on your door and say, did you want to work at this place?
Right. Hey, we heard in your mind that this is your dream job. We thought we'd offer it to you.
Yeah. You actually have to go out and get the application, fill it out, maybe even write up a resume and clean up all of your social media and all of this other stuff. But you have to take that first step. You have to start somewhere.
Yeah. And there's no fear. Listen, if we're talking about the idea of you making social changes, join a freaking book club. Go join something you enjoy. You know what I mean? They have those knitting circles for old people, and I think they're genius because as you get older in life, it's harder to make friends. It's harder to get yourself back out there. But if you enjoy knitting, you can go sit around at one of those little knitting circles and you make friends. And then from there, you say, oh, we go to lunch every month. And then from there, it's, they're old, but if you have a younger group of friends, we'll go to a nightclub and you'll start to meet people and you'll start to be able to see that it's not that scary.
Right. And when you start making bigger changes, say you want to be a little bit more authoritative. You're tired of people telling you what to do and you just kind of bow down and do what you're told to do. No argument. go get me a cup of coffee. I wasn't hired to be your personal coffee servant. Go get your own damn cup of coffee. Kind of like one of those things. Go get me a cup of coffee. Nope, not doing it anymore. Excuse me? I'm not doing it anymore.
Is that a real thing people deal with?
Yes.
That's crazy. Listen, guys, if you are stuck and I mean this, if you're stuck in that way where, you feel like you need to be more authoritative, just start small. You know what I mean? Like, start small with the no, I'm not going to get your coffee. And then, if someone calls you, you're not constantly at their beck and call. You show people, listen, I have boundaries and you need to respect them, and you stick to them. It's like intervention.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is.
I see it more often than I care to actually see it. I've seen, even when I was in the military, where here's a person, let's just say that they're a sergeant. I'm talking just base E5 sergeant. So you're probably in charge of a squad. So you got 12 people, maybe even more people than that, up to 25, that you're supposed to be in charge of. But you got this one little E3 that runs around and just kind of barks orders. Anytime you give an order, they sit there and, well, why are we doing that? Shouldn't we do it this way? And they cave. Okay, you're not leadership quality. You need to stand up and take charge. Make a decision and then stick by that decision. That's the only way you're going to gain respect.
Yeah. And remember, you're not a supporting character in someone else's life. You're the star of your own life. So if you feel like you are being bossed around, if you feel like all of those things are happening to you, like I said, start small. I think another big change people like to make is, with your career. People love to make career changes all the time. Start small. Learn about the damn career before you enter it. You know what I mean? If you say, hey, I always kind of wanted to do this, learn about it.
Yeah, before we started this podcast, no joke, I spent literally 6 months studying just how to do a podcast. It's not really that complicated. You need a decent microphone and something to record on and some place to actually put it so that it can go out to everybody. That's really it. It's not that complex. You start getting into the nuances of it in order to take it up to professional quality, and it takes a little bit more research. But then you all start looking at, okay, well, what about editing? What about sound? What about balance? What about this? What about that? What about social media, websites, and all this other stuff? It can get very complex if you start delving too far into it.
Yeah.
But even applying for the position that I currently have, I studied everything I could about that agency before I went down and got the application, because I was like, well, I have several choices. Which one fits me best?
All right. And when it comes to making changes, the best changes you can make are informed decision. Start with informed decisions. You don't really want to go into that manic sort of change state. You know what I mean? Where you're just doing shit just to do it. Make sure that what you're changing needs to be changed.
Yeah, you don't want to just change for change's sake.
Right. That's just, I don't know.
That's kind of like just bowing down to the norm. Okay, right. Well, this is what society tells you. If you're a doctor, this is what society says a doctor looks like. Right? You drive an expensive car, you got a big house, you got a bunch of fancy shit inside of that house, and this is the kind of husband or wife that you're supposed to have, and 2.5 kids and all this other stuff, and go out every Sunday and play golf. Why?
Right.
I'm not a golf player. I want to go out. I want to go skydiving. Skydiving? Are you fucking nuts? You're jumping out of a perfectly good airplane. Well, when that airplane becomes no longer perfectly good, you're on your own. I know what to do.
Yeah, you're going to have to jump out of it either way,
Or write it down.
Yeah. And that's the thing is when you start to make these changes, especially when it comes to careers, any of that stuff, and you're slowly and surely learning about it, you're kind of sampling. So if you want to go, to a college, kind of visit the college and do all those things, when you make those changes and you start getting that information you need, the next step I would say is to sort of write out your plan in a way where it's very detailed.
Everybody needs a plan. Like, I didn't just start into this podcast without some kind of plan in front of me. And when I was writing movies and doing the scripts and all that other stuff, I didn't start off without a plan. I actually I would storyboard everything. And every scene had like a post-it, and I'd slap that post-it up there, and this is what this scene is about. And then I would lay out the other scenes and I'd have gaps. Okay, well, how do I get from this scene to this scene in the most interesting way?
Yep.
And sometimes it took me a while. And
Absolutely.
I would have to fill in other gaps before I could fill that one in. And eventually I would sit there and, this would work. Now I have like a complete story, but I still need to figure out what character is carrying that scene. Is it an upbeat scene or downbeat scene? What's the emotional journey? And then I would start filling in those notes. And after I finished all of that, then I would actually start writing the script.
Exactly. And that's why plans help. That's why writing down the plan helps. Because when it comes time for you to write the script and really execute and shoot and do all of those things, you have a basic thing to go back to. You have something that is literally, I like to call it a 1, 5, 10. This is where you want to be 1 year, 1 year, 5 year, 10 years. You want to write those down. You want to have that and you want to keep that as the framework. It doesn't necessarily have to be set in stone, and sometimes things change, but it's the framework. It's the basic principle of what you need to change in your life and how you're going to do it.
Exactly. I mean, some of those scripts that I actually worked on, I would get towards the very end. I'm like in the third act, and this whole thing is almost done. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, oh, wait a minute.
Gotta go back.
This would make an awesome scene. And I'd write it out. I'd send it off to a reader and they would like, that's fucking perfect. They'd send it back to me with all their notes. And then I see, damn, I've got to go all the way back to scene 1 and adjust all of this stuff all over again.
And it's a process.
It is. It's a process. And sometimes you find that you start getting into something and it's like, oh man, now I've really got to fix all this. And sometimes you're going to have to dig your heels in and go, I'm not changing anything. Yep. I like exactly where I'm at. And I've had those arguments.
I was going to say, believe in your plan, believe in yourself. And that's what it starts with too. And I keep saying that's what it starts with, but guys, it's like a literal never ending process. So it's always starting.
Everything's interconnected.
Yeah, it's all holistic. And that's the thing is, believe in your plan, stand by your plan. When I worked in radio, there were times where we had to talk about topics and I did not want to, but my co-host would. And they would be so passionate and they would believe in it so much that I was sold on it. And we would go through the whole entire, the 3 hours on Sunday morning. We would sit there and we would talk about it and it would work because when you really believe in something and you really have the passion, everybody can see it and it's infectious.
Right. Sometimes when I'm in corrections and I'm dealing with different inmates, sometimes they will ask us a question and we need to give them an answer, but it's not really the answer that they want. And sometimes they're asking us a question and there's really no kind of answer, but they're looking for a definitive. And you literally have to make it up on the spot. Mm-hmm. How come we can't do this and this, that, and the other? And sometimes I'll be like, yeah, but according to the law, and I would just make up some kind of something just to make it sound official. According to statute 1584.23 subsection 5, and they're just like, holy shit.
Yeah, right. I'm not going to question that because I don't even know where to find that book. And that's a good point too. It's like, you have to commit, man. You have to commit to that change. And the minute you have to commit to that statue. And the minute you stop committing to it, that's when everything crumbles.
Right. And it's like going out and when you're meeting somebody for the very first time, I want to project what I want them to believe, what I'm about. And really, my two biggest things is honesty and communication. And you can actually switch those up, communication and honesty, because they're both intertwined. But however I'm projecting that, I need to stand by it and I need to totally commit to that. That way, when they think of me, that's what they think about. Oh, he's a very honest person. He's going to tell me what he's feeling.
Yeah.
And it's a lot better than, oh yeah, you're a nice guy.
Yeah, very true.
What is more memorable? Oh yeah, you're a nice guy, I think. Or, yeah, that's the kind of person you want to deal with because they're extremely honest.
Right. And that's it. It comes down to that honesty and commitment. Like you said, they're completely intertwined. And if you can't be honest to yourself and say, listen, I know I want to make this change, but I don't think I'm ready. You're literally, and this sounds crazy, but that that self-doubt is setting you up to fail completely.
Just one area of self-doubt. If somebody says something to you and you don't like it and you're just going to let it pass you by, or somebody tells you to do something and you know it's wrong, but everybody else is going along with it, so you kind of cave to to the group mentality.
Yeah.
That's when you're going to fail.
Yeah. It's your life. Like I said, you are the star of your life. If everybody in the world wants to go get tacos and you want a burger, go get a burger. It's that kind of thing.
That's where you kind of have to set up your boundaries. One of the big boundaries that I have is only those who I really look up to and those who really enhance my life. Those are the people on my inner circle. And then out from there is another circle of people. And those are the people that I kind of have fun with. Those are the people that I like to hang out with, but they're not going to get all of my time.
And I'm not going to take advice from them either. Yeah, we all have those. It's sort of like a bullseye of human interaction. You have your most inner circle, your 10s, and then your 9s and 8s, And when you think about that, and you think about the people who are in your inner circle, are they, the people in my inner circle are the only people I trust to tell them when I'm making big changes.
Yeah.
Because I know they're not going to be jealous. I know they're not going to be upset. I know they're not going to be any of those things. I know they're going to support me and they're going to love me. And if I say, listen, I'm going to go jump off a cliff without a parachute, obviously they're going to stop me. So they allow me the freedom to express myself and be myself, but still have the wherewithal and the knowledge of who I am to say, hey, you might not want to do that.
Yeah, those are the people that I really pay attention to. And that far outer circle, if somebody wants to get cut from my circle, all they really have to do is I will completely cut them out of my life. Challenge my integrity.
Oh, yeah.
I'm very honest. I'm very upfront. And I don't make shit up. 99.9% of everything that I say and everything that I do, I can actually back it up if somebody really, really wants to see the evidence. But personally, if I have to prove myself, then I made a judgment error, and you need to be on one of those outside circles.
Yeah, and it's not even so much as, see, because to me, if you really challenge my integrity, I don't care. I'm not someone who's going to care about that. To me, it speaks more about you than it does about me. But when it comes to it, I mean, one of those boundaries I have is just leave me the fuck alone sometimes. Like, that is my number one boundary. Do not bother me. If you are calling me because you have an issue, that's one thing. But if you are just bothering me just to bother me, you gotta go. You gotta go.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's different levels, but that's my biggest one. And I have those boundaries put in place. And it's not because I made some kind of conscious decision. I was just like, why am I putting up with this?
Right.
And so I just get rid of the problem. Now, there's other things that I find difficult in that inner circle. They'll help me kind of work through it and kind of help me see or look at it from a different angle. And I can either take their advice or leave it. They really don't care either way. But that's what that inner circle does, is kind of helps guide me along. Now, if somebody's just constantly, why are you doing that? Why are you doing this? Makes no sense. Okay, you need to go. Because you're nothing more than a distraction now.
Yep, exactly. And that's the thing. When you are enacting these changes in your life, guys, like I said, I know this sounds very abstract, but we're telling you it's all intertwined. When you're making these changes, you're going to have people who are going to say things like, why this? Why? I mean, and get rid of them. Unless you are literally doing something so self-destructive, it can hurt you and they're questioning you. But if you're making changes in your life that are good for you, that are healthy.
Yeah, if I have everybody coming at me and everybody's pretty much telling me the same thing, then I need to step back and go,
yep.
Okay, wait, is this really the direction I need to go in?
Absolutely.
When those arguments come up, because a lot of people, they're going to try and drag you down. It's like, what is it? It's like I've heard it described before. You have a bucket of crabs and one of them tries to crawl out and all the other ones kind of grab and pull you back down.
Yep.
Those are not the kind of people that I want to be with. I want people that actually, they've already made it outside the bucket and they're like, hey, come on, join us. Check out this view.
Right. Let me help you out. Exactly. And it's almost as if when you grow, there's a strength that you develop as you change and you start to go out more and you're more social or you're doing whatever you need to make your life better. There's a strength in you that grows and it just grows and you have no damn time for those people. And you say, you know what? I respect who you are as a person in my life, but I am not, number one, I don't trust you enough to come to you with anything. Number two, I can't have you around.
I got this question the other day, and there was a girl, and she was asking about, or she was talking about going to college, and she wanted to go to a 2-year college versus a 4-year college because one, it was going to save her a lot of money, but all of her friends were like, "Oh, that's so stupid. I mean, why are you going to do that? You're not going to get this, you're not going to get that," and everybody goes to a 4-year college. Look,
that's retarded. Sorry,
yeah, it is. To me, I was like, you need to make up your mind what's going to make you happy. And you do that. Forget about what everybody else says.
Yeah, and even if it doesn't make you happy at that moment, is it practical? Because, yes, there are going to be times, like, especially if you're in your early 20s, you're going to go through a lot of career transitions. And that first one is a whole entire bitch. Working at the bottom is the worst, but it is the best learning experience. So sometimes that change, like, you know, from a 4-year to a 2-year college, even if you have your heart set on NYU, and your grades say community college and your wallet says community college, that small step and change, while it may not be the one you want, it's practical and it makes sense and it's going to help you in the long run.
I started off with a 2-year college.
Oh, yeah.
One of the things I did not do when I was in high school, I never took the ACTs and I never took the SATs. I saw the stress that everybody else was going through because everybody was saying, "Oh, this is going to determine the rest of my life."
It does not, by the way.
Fuck?
Does not.
No, it does not. And then I found out that I can take a lot of courses on the cheap at a 2-year college, and I don't need ACTs or SATs to get in. I think I had to do like a remedial English.
Yeah, they usually give you like a clef test and see what you can test into.
Yeah, they just looked at my high school transcript and were like, "Yeah, you've got B's and A's here, but you've got D's and C's over here."
Yeah. My transcripts look like I'm some sort of savant, dude.
Yeah. But they sat there and, you need to take this course. So I did that. And then I found out I can actually take those courses and transfer the majority of them to a 4-year college. And I don't have to put up with those. One, I don't have to pay for all those courses.
Exactly.
And I don't have to put up with them. I can actually take the course I want to take.
I went to high school in a very poor neighborhood. And, you know, while we're on the topic of 2-year colleges, that's what they pushed for a lot of kids. They didn't push the big school that, you know, the Ivy League. They pushed go your ass to school for 2 years and transfer because you have more of a chance of getting a scholarship. You also have a chance to really kind of work while you're in school. And that's the thing. Like I said, you might have to go to that 2-year college and you might be upset because your heart is set on some Ivy League major university. But the thing is, you can always transfer.
I look at it this way. I don't care if you've gone to an Ivy League school or some kind of, I don't know, midtown local university.
Right.
As far as I know, English is English, math is math, and science is science. I don't care about the pedigree of your degree.
It just means you have...
You just spent a shitload more money than I did.
Right, just to be a teacher where I teach too. And guys, think about this. And, you know, as you go through it, as you're making those changes, you're transitioning. Sometimes that easier or that more practical step benefits you so much more in the long run because especially when we talk about 2 to 4-year colleges, you have a financial advantage most of the time. And you want that. You want every advantage. Every change you make, you want it to have an amazing advantage. So you think to yourself, okay, I want to be more social. What's the advantage?
It's like the last surgery that I went in for. I didn't sit there and go, "Hey, excuse me, doc, where did you go to Harvard Medical or
thank you, dude.
What university did you go?" I mean, I really didn't care. Hey, just fix my shoulder. That's what I care about.
Right. You can sit on YouTube and operate right now if you really need to. Just get it done. It's very simple.
All I know is that you could either spend $500,000 getting your medical degree or $300,000.
To you.
Yeah, it's up to you. Yeah, there's a couple professions where maybe a pedigree pedigree degree could open up some additional doors. But really,
Literally
when it comes down
vocations.
to it, it's just like, can you do the job or not?
Right. You have the same amount of training hours as any other doctor. And that's kind of the thing. Every change you make in your life, it's going to have an advantage. It's going to have a disadvantage. So one of the advantages is, listen, I'm going to be saving half of a college tuition. The disadvantage is I have to stay home for 2 years while my friends go off. But that shit, it's so small in the long run. And that's kind of another thing. That's another fear people have, is who they're going to lose, who's going to stay. People who want to stay in your life are going to stay in your life, no matter how far away your college is, no matter how social you become. They're going to stay because they want to, and they love you, and they support you. So if that's another one of your, I can't change this because I'm going to lose somebody. Only people who want to be lost
are going to be lost. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I've done, I have moved roughly every 3 years. It's roughly every 3 to 5 years of my life. My dad was in the military, then I joined the military, and then even after the military, I pretty much go where the job is. So wherever I clean the bathrooms, that's home. And I have people that, I've run into a lot of people, they've lived in the same place their entire life. That, I've been friends with them since kindergarten.
My girlfriend's like that. She's lived in the same place her whole fucking life. And it's crazy the difference in the dynamic of your personality when you live someplace your whole life versus somebody who has not.
I've lived in a lot of different countries. I've lived in a lot of different states. I've visited even more. I've literally been to, roughly 40 of the 50 states here in the United States. So I kind of pick up a little bit of, okay, that's why this area is different than this area. And that's why the mentality here is different than it is there. And I can see that, so I can make those connections versus somebody that, the east side is different than the west side.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm just like, I really don't see that. But would it be nice if I could sit there and go, I've been friends with this person since I was in the second grade, kindergarten, middle school, whatever? Yeah, that would be nice. But then again, I look back and I'm like, yes, but I wouldn't have all of these other experiences that really nobody else has.
Right. And that's awesome. And the thing is, when you keep moving like that, and I moved around fucked up when I was a kid, like an aggravating amount of times. I hate moving to this. I refuse to move ever again. I hate moving. It's a pain in the ass. But like I said, my girlfriend, she's been in the same place her whole life, and she's very boxy. You know what I mean? Like, she's very limited in her thinking. Whereas me, I'm like, everything in the world is possible. You can cure cancer. I believe in you, and all of those things. Because when you move around and you see how different life is in different places, you realize that literally anything is possible. And it's this grand belief.
Yeah. And that's pretty much my mentality. I've taken on jobs and sought out different positions just to see if I could do it. I didn't just jump into screenwriting. I kind of studied the industry, and then I realized, okay, this is what I need. And then I stumbled across something, and it was just like a single sentence inside of this great big huge forum. And it said, different production companies have different kinds of scripts. And I was like, really? So then I started looking into that. And I did find out that different distribution studios, your majors, have a different type of script. Warner Brothers is different than Universal. Surprisingly enough, it is.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm writing a script and I want to go through a Warner Brothers sub-production company, I need to format to that.
Yep.
Then I was like, okay, well, now I've written it, now what? Who do I send it to?
Yep, exactly. And
that was my break. I wrote about 15 scripts, and then I just shopped them out until Revolution Studios actually, they gave a little tug and said, hey, we want to greenlight this.
Yep. And that's what you gotta do. You gotta just put yourself out there. That's all change is. Change, if we can reduce it to anything, it is putting yourself out there in hopes that things are going to go correctly. And just because they don't go correctly, I mean, like John said, he wrote, 15 movie scripts. He writes 15 scripts. You shop them out. it's like anything. You do a million takes, and then the one that's perfect makes it all worth it.
The whole reason I even wrote 15 of them is because if they came back and said, well, this one is good, we like it, but do you have anything else?
Exactly. And that's what change is. It's having a backup plan, obviously. Like, so if we're using the scripts again, he has scripts, he has a backup plan. He's putting himself out there. And that one movie he wrote was the one they said, you know what? This is it. That's all change is.
Yeah, and it's kind of like figuring out, I was a locksmith for a while. Okay.
What a weird profession, man.
Trying to figure out how to become a locksmith, especially when they say a licensed and bonded locksmith. A lot of people, they're like, okay, well, how do I get licensed? I'm not going to mention it because it's extremely simple, and I'm not going to have anybody do anything criminal with this.
Like fucking weirdos listening, like, I'm going to become a locksmith.
I'm not going to have you breaking into somebody's house. But it's a very simple process. But go down to any locksmith company and just tell them, I have no experience, I want to become a locksmith. Or, where do I get the tools? They're not going to tell you. And when you ask them, well, how do I become a locksmith? Their straight up answer is study it.
Yep.
Okay. So how can I become this if I can't get any information on it? So that's where I went. I was like, how do I do this? And I became a licensed and bonded locksmith. I still have the full kit in my garage, and I have another kit in my car.
Definitely changing my locks. I guess it wouldn't matter if you're a locksmith, but I'm going to do something. No, but that's funny.
It's like going for any type of position, and you can relate this back to just meeting people. How do I meet somebody? Well, you got to put yourself out there.
Just say hi. And then hope for the best, expect nothing.
Say hi, give a compliment.
What it is. That's it.
That's it.
That's what simple change is.
Very rarely will you ever see me. If I do just a straight up cold approach, I will say, hey, how you doing? Nice glasses. And, oh, thank you. And that usually will start it up, and I'll be able to get a conversation going.
Yeah.
But say hi, give a compliment, and then set your boundaries. Boundaries is possibly going to cause the most rift with a lot of people. They don't want to see you change. They want you to stay how you are.
Right, because they're content where they are. And sometimes that is, not sometimes, most of the time, that is horrible to have that around you, especially if they're friends or they're someone who you really care about, because you want to do better.
Yeah, when I was in high school, the group of people that I hung out with, all of us wanted to go into the military, but everybody was going into the Air Force. I really didn't want the Air Force. If I can't fly the plane, why the fuck do I want to be there? I mean, I want to be in it. That was my mentality at the time. I don't recommend it now, but it took a couple lessons to figure that out. So where did I go? I went into the Marine Corps. The hardest service as a whole, it's the hardest service. It's the smallest service. They have the smallest amount of money. I could have gone into the Army, which is, 8 weeks basic training. The Navy or the Air Force, which I think is 6 weeks, I think.
Yep.
No, I went for 12 weeks. Let's just double up the time and get yelled at that much more.
Yeah, I was a bit of a hippie when I was graduating high school. Oddly enough, was in Air Force ROTC, though, and kicked ass. And could have possibly gone in the Air Force, or actually almost had an appointment to the academy. But then I was like, I watched a 1969 documentary and fell in love with Woodstock. So there's that. That's really how it happened.
I mean, I was in Air Force ROTC as well, and I was just like, it's really isn't for me. But so, yeah, I went into the Marine Corps. Then later on, I actually did a complete switch post 9/11. I'd been out for just under a year, and 9/11 happened. So what did I do? I went into the Army.
Oh, that's what I do when I see war brewing. I go, I'm going to join the military.
No, that was actually because the point, I was a financial planner at the time, so I had my license. I had my licenses, life, health, PNC, and then I also had my investment licenses. Well, the company I was appointed to was in the Twin Towers, so we no longer had a company, and all the people that I knew were now no longer there.
That's crazy. Yeah. So it does make sense to go back
Yeah.
to what you know. You're not like the only guy who's ever been in the military to go back, though. I know a lot of, and that's a hard transition. Speaking of changes, is coming from the military into civilian life. That's a hard
actually,
change.
it was a really hard change going from Marine Corps to Army. Marine Corps looks like the Army, but they talk and act like the Navy. And their guidelines are completely different. So me trying to figure out just how to give a basic instruction class, the Marine Corps has one way, the Army has a completely different way, and it made no sense to me. I couldn't wrap my head around it. Even how to march people. I was able to march my platoon one time. And after that, they're like, no more. We can't understand what the fuck you're saying. And what is all this stuff you're doing? Well, that's how I learned how to march people. And I mean, it's left, right, left, right.
Yeah, right. Like there's only two options. Really.
But yeah, it was the way that I learned and the way that they wanted it done was two completely different animals. And it caused a lot of rift. And
I can imagine.
I mean, even getting promoted in the Army is completely different than getting promoted in the Marine Corps. Marine Corps they look at completely different stuff than the Army does. I remember I went to a promotion board and they asked me, where does this ribbon go on the uniform? And I was like,
on the jacket.
Who the fuck cares? I mean, I've got there's an entire diagram sitting right behind you that tells me. I mean, there's over 140 some odd different ribbons. I'm not going to memorize all that shit. Fuck you. Ask me about leading my troops.
Right. Ask me about like something important. Maybe I'll have an answer for you.
No, actually, there was some other stuff that happened in there, and the sergeant major literally kicked me out. But I stood up for what I believed needed to happen in order to lead my troops effectively, especially in a combat zone. And the questions that they were asking me made absolutely no sense. They were like secondary, tertiary type questions that made no sense on doing my job and leading my troops. And I wasn't going to back down from that because I firmly believed in it. And unfortunately, I didn't get promoted and the sergeant major kicked me out. So.
Well, at least but see, and that's that strength I'm talking about. That's that when you believe in something and you're like, you know what? I didn't get promoted, but I'm not going to stop fighting.
Yeah. I mean, I still had the respect of my troops. And even throughout my entire company, when people had problems, they tended to come to me with those problems. And it's not I'm not bragging about it. It's just one of those things. They trusted me more because I actually took time to actually get to know them and where their strengths and weaknesses were. I wouldn't ask somebody to go and lay down suppressive fire if I knew that they weren't very good with a fucking rifle.
Right, exactly.
And I'm not going to ask them who literally does not know how to communicate on a radio or land navigation. I'm not going to ask them to do those jobs unless they're the last person there. I want to cater the job to their strength.
Exactly, and that's how you lead. And that's very important, is catering everything to your strength. So when you're going about those changes, like you said, if you really are a horrible dancer and you want to learn how to dance, don't make it your personal change or your personal decision to become a professional dancer. Just learn how to get some rhythm. You know what I mean? Like, it's that kind of thing. Play to your strengths. Play to who you are. Know who you are. Love who you are. Embrace who you are. And when you're able to finally see that beautiful person that we know lives deep inside of you, which I'm pretty sure Christina Aguilera said, but I can't remember exactly. When you're finally able to see that person and you're ready to be that person, once you start changing, whether people want to leave your life, whether you're afraid of fear or success, or you're afraid of losing people and all of those things, guess what? They literally don't matter anymore.
Yeah, it really doesn't matter. I mean, I have people that, why the hell are you all dressed up? This is how I dress. I mean, I really don't care. I've had people say, that's a terrible shirt. Well, don't wear it.
Right, you don't have to wear it. It's my shirt. Yeah. That's crazy.
I just really don't care about a lot of the negative feedback that I get. It's like, you do you, yeah. I want to do me, because you're not in charge of my happiness.
Yeah, and if you're not being constructive, you're just being a dick, and who needs that in their life? Life's hard enough, you know? Like, you don't need just a bunch of assholes.
If you're going to be a dick, at least be a small one.
Right. Because I will literally, like I said, there's a strength you develop, man, and you stop having time for that nonsense, and you really start to move in a way that suits you constantly.
Your life becomes so much easier and so much more pleasurable.
If it serves you, it serves you.
But that's pretty much our show on change. You change because you want to change and you want to improve your life.
Yeah.
Now, other people, they can either join you and support you on that, and they will become your inner circle. Everybody else, you can push them out to the sides and just limit your time to those who are going to raise you up instead of drag you down.
Exactly. You are too wonderful to not know that you aren't wonderful.
Exactly.
Obviously, I can't write greeting cards, guys. But you get what I'm saying, is you're too good of a person, and even if you say, I'm not that great of a person, I do this, I do that. Okay, well, you're at least acknowledging that, so that to me means there's room for growth, and that eventually you're going to be ready to grow, and that is a start in itself.
Yeah. Identify your weaknesses. Know you're weak at something. Like, I can't draw. Don't ask me to draw. Now, photography, I can do that, but don't ask me to draw. And I'm really not that funny of a person. I can come up with some stuff off the top of my head every now and then, but
That's funny.
I'm not a stand-up comedian, so don't ask me to do that. And I can't sing, so karaoke is completely out unless you
I don't do karaoke
want
either.
your ears to bleed. Now, I can write music, but I can't sing, so don't ask me to do it. But I'm upfront and I'm honest about that. But if I know something and you ask me about it, I want to give you everything I can.
Yeah.
Just stand up for what you believe in. So
exactly.
With that,
get a moral compass.
So with that, that is our show. And go out there, rate, like, subscribe, visit our website. We've got some new articles out there that are more in-depth than we've currently gone. Yeah, our course is coming out soon. Almost done with it. So go out there, pre-register. We'll get that link back up there so you can follow through with that.
Yep. And if you ever want to be on the show, if you have questions, always send us messages, always send us emails. If you just want to inflate our egos, feel free to do that. Make sure you leave comments. Especially those 5-star ones. I really dig them because you guys really do listen to the show and you do enjoy it. And it's very fun to see these correct interpretations of who we are as people from people who just listen to us. It's very fun. I enjoy it. I dig it.
We like those reviews because they do help us. Well, one, people can find us. And two, it does help offset the cost of production because whether you realize it or not, this is a very expensive hobby.
Yeah.
So with that, we will talk to you on the next one.
That's all for this episode of the Girls Ask Guys show, where all of us learn to master this thing called life together. For more answers to your questions on life and love, be sure to subscribe to the show so you don't miss a single episode. And head to girlsaskguyshow.com to submit your questions for a future episode or apply to be a guest on the show. Good luck out there, and we'll catch you next time, right here on the Girls Ask Guys show.